Hey, everybody, it's the Plant-Based Business Hour. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Thank you for being with me today on a special Plant-Based Business Hour. That's right. I usually do not come to you on Wednesdays, but there's some breaking news that I'd like to cover with you. The journey and trajectory of a small business is usually that of one that implodes and fails. 90% of businesses don't make it. Although the last I saw, 70% of workers in the United States receive compensation from small businesses. Small businesses are really the heart of what moves our economy, but it is anything than easy. It's always trials and tribulations, ups and downs, one step up, two step back, and then five steps up. But if you listen to the media, you might think that everything is a beautiful exit and everyone's a gazillionaire. It does not go that way, let me tell you, which is why today I wanted to bring on my guests. I'm having Mike Woliansky, who's the founder of No Evil Foods, along with Sadrah Schadel, his co-founder of No Evil Foods. Also, Abby Lyall of Big Idea Ventures. And last but so not least, Tom Mastrobuoni of Big Idea Ventures. Together, the four of you, thank you for being with me today.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I always love being on the show.
I'm so happy to have you back. So the reason I say breaking news is because we're hearing from you in a way that we haven't before. While this news perhaps itself isn't the first time it's been talked about, you are letting us know your story about why you're going from a manufacturing plant to a co-manufacturing plant and how you are shifting how you produce and manufacture your food. Now, why is this so exceptional? Because usually companies start with a co-manufacturer and they stay on that route, or they get the funds to have their own manufacturing plant and they've made that capital investment and they stay that route. But it's odd to see this kind of transition. So I think I will start with Mike and find out this transition, which started maybe about 4 months ago. Why are you making this move and how have you survived through COVID to come to this decision?
Sure. And thanks again, Elizabeth, for having us on. It's not a short story, but we'll try to keep it linear and have it make sense. And Sadrah will jump in whenever I start trailing off in a far off direction. But it's been quite a journey for No Evil Foods. We are a company that started in our home kitchen. Sadrah developed these recipes there. We had made our own products from that moment on. We were in a shared use kitchen space. We grew in that space. We eventually had our own manufacturing space. But I think that while that is challenging in and of itself to have your own manufacturing plant and to also grow a brand in a increasingly competitive category and almost be really operating two businesses. You're operating a brand and a sales and marketing organization, and you're operating a manufacturing plant with all sorts of moving pieces from people to equipment. Add COVID on top of that and increasing expenses, increasing complications from, internal to external, supply chain, logistics, costs, all of those things. And it created a challenging environment for a small brand trying to compete in this space with a very, bootstrapped kind of capital structure. We have raised money, but we have not raised anywhere near the hundreds of millions of dollars that you are seeing some of our other competitors around us raising. And so that, started to put us in a challenging position even in 2020. But, for us, it's always been a fight, or it always was a fight to create this community around No Evil Foods. And that was external with consumers and people buying the product, but it was also very important that it was an internal thing too with our team. And so we spent, I don't want to quantify it, but tons and tons of time, energy, and money focused on building that internal community of No Evil Foods. And that meant raising wages during the pandemic. And all the safety protocols around COVID-19 that kept COVID-19 from spreading. We had no cases of COVID-19 spreading in our facility throughout the pandemic until we made this change. And we focused a lot on doing those things despite I think what a lot of folks what I'm trying to say is you might have had to make different decisions as a small company, to pull back. And we pushed to continue to make those things happen. And that took us into 2021. And, our company essentially went through a situation where we were raising capital. We had a significant strategic investment that was supposed to come to the business, and it didn't happen. And that's a whole other entrepreneur story that we could go into that happens all the time, where you have capital that you think is coming and then something happens. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you and it falls through. And we had that happen in a way where we lost a very significant investment, and it was, essentially a surprise. And we had literally days to figure out what to do about that for the business to survive. And so all of those things kind of stack up to a moment in time where we had to make a terribly painful decision to shift the business, because otherwise there wasn't going to be a No Evil Foods. We weren't going to be able to go out and save animals or help people be healthier or help save the planet, because that whole mission was going to go away if we didn't do something dramatic to help it, get through.
Yeah, I think one of the hard things about being an entrepreneur is no one realize, or often people don't realize, that pivot is the name of the game. And so you often don't have the luxury of the optimal thing that you would like to do. You may not have time, you may not have expertise, you often don't have money. That's, sort of a given. And I love what you say. I hear a lot of entrepreneurs say this, that the reason they go the co-manufacturing route in the beginning, which you guys didn't do, is they don't want a second job. And that is running a manufacturing plant, often 24/7, so if things go down in the middle of the night, Saturday, you're with your family out for dinner, forget it. No, you're not. You're back in that plant. So this commitment to manufacturing is really a whole different skill set and a whole other job. But Sadrah, I would like to hear from you as well, as you look back on this difficult decision to get away from co-manufacturing yourselves. As Mike said, you started in your kitchen, so it's very personal for you. What was the thing that made you say, this has to be the decision we make for the health of the company? And ultimately, you can't offer jobs, you can't have a workforce, you can't have products, you can't have a vision to change the world if you don't have a company. So what was that final straw for you?
Well, I mean, I think the final straw was definitely the drop in financing. We were already having a very shortened financial runway. And as we were continuing through this fundraising round, and we had anticipated these funds coming in, that runway got shorter and shorter and shorter. And so when it dropped out, we literally had only, barely enough money in the bank to cover the next payroll, to be totally transparent. And we had no other option on the table. If we didn't decide to do it right then, as Mike had mentioned, there wouldn't be a No Evil Foods in existence. And I think something you just said, Elizabeth, is what carried us through, which is the vision. If a company, and if our company didn't have or doesn't have the vision that we have, we would not have survived this. We would have given up and closed our doors and just said, you know what? We tried and that's it. But because we have this vision, because we have this passion, because we have a belief that we are really creating something that's valuable, something that's needed, and something that's necessary, we continued to push and we continued to strive. And we learned. I really think that all of these challenges that we've encountered in the past, since 2020, since COVID hit, these are our biggest opportunities for learning, for personal growth and development, for becoming a better and a stronger company. These are difficult to talk about because, as Abby, mentioned, I think maybe in our pre-chat, we only talk about the wins, right? We don't want to go on LinkedIn and talk about when we lose an account. We don't want to go on LinkedIn and talk about when financing falls through. That's not fun for anybody. We want everyone to celebrate. We want to, we're always chasing the high as entrepreneurs, but there's a lot of lows, and they're very high and they're very low sometimes. And there's times when you just got to dig yourself out of the gutter, and that's just the truth. And that's the short of it. And we're in that time. We're in the gutter, but we are climbing out. With partners like Tom and Abby at the table, we have the opportunity to do that.
It's an emotional thing, really. I don't know if people realize just what blood, sweat, and tears goes into being an entrepreneur all the time. Seth Tibbetts, because it is, you never get a break when you're an entrepreneur. Seth Tibbett, founder of Tofurky, always says that the superpower of vegans is that they have that mission. And so when you're ready to throw in the towel and you want to give up, that vision for trying to make the world a better place really does help carry you through. But I'm wondering, and I do want to hear from Tom and Abby, of course, but while I've got both of you here sharing your story, I'll throw it back to Mike. And I'm wondering if there were ever days when you said, I can't take it anymore.
No, he's ridiculously optimistic. I'm the one that always wants to give up.
Okay. Interesting. Well, then I'll throw it back to you, Sadrah. Was there a day when you said, like, I don't know if I can do it anymore?
Like every day. I mean, as recent as a few days ago, I was very doubtful that we can pull this off. But then you get an Instagram message about how, your chorizo's the best, or you get someone who's tells you that their weight loss journey happened because of you, and you keep pushing. I love that Seth Tibbett called it a superpower, because I think that there's something to that.
We actually just in that vein, a couple of days ago, we got a physical postcard in the mail from someone, I think in Oregon, that had just tried the Pit Boss and just wanted to tell us how amazing it was. And they sent us an actual handwritten postcard. And yeah, that's, Sadrah gives me too much credit. I think I'm good at keeping the optimism on the outside. But sure, I think I don't know if there are entrepreneurs that don't have those moments almost every day or every few days where they're just fighting. What is it? I just want to remember the line right. But and this might have been attributed to being a CEO versus being a broader entrepreneur, but I think it's all the same. And it was basically like, how to describe that role is you have to stare into the abyss and imagine the blue sky. And
but that's hard.
Yeah. Oh, it's very hard.
And
but
that
I remind
takes
myself
concentrated energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I always ask at the end, and this is a special podcast today, folks, so we're not going to follow the same structure that I usually do. But at the end, I usually ask, is there a phrase that you tell yourself to get yourself out of a bad groove? Because entrepreneurs can get in a funk. Is that what you tell yourself? You look into the abyss and find the blue sky?
Yeah, that's definitely one. Sadrah has some really good ones that are, I think, on Post-its on her computer.
They are. One of them is, it won't always be like this. And I think that that's such a key one to remember, because when you're winning, it's true. In that this celebration, this moment, it's fleeting. Pay attention to it, show up, be present. And it's also so important when you're in the thick of it and you're crawling out of that trench. It won't always be like this. Tomorrow may be different. Tomorrow you might get that big win. So keep pushing.
So I have a question for you before we do hear from our other very knowledgeable guests. And if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. But being an entrepreneur, particularly an entrepreneur who cares about the world, cares about animals, cares about this vision, cares about your employees. From what I've read in the newspaper, you have very competitive wages, and that before, sort of all hell broke loose, I'll say people were super happy and really liked working there. And it was very, very positive. But there are bad days. COVID, let's just take COVID, for example. Forget your particular situation. Let's just look at COVID. Every entrepreneur had basically a bad day for a year and a half. Can you share this with employees? What is the lesson learned for, one, maintaining authenticity so that you can be a leader and strong, but share the difficult times? People have to know, I guess, right? Can't sweep it under the rug. Or do you? You tell me. What's the best way to share hard times from a company culture standpoint? And what's the best way to keep company culture when you have something like COVID pressing on you?
Really good questions. And I think big questions. And I think things that we were, and probably anyone in the position of having a team or running a facility is continually trying to figure out if they're trying to do it well. Transparently, I would say it was a challenge over the kind of growth of our business in terms of how to share that information and those details with kind of a broad and large team. Yeah. Because, for various reasons, just the kind of ability to maintain that communication, or the ability to do it in a way that was, helpful and not necessarily, I don't know what they're maybe confusing or distorted in a way, so that people could understand kind of what they were hearing. But I mean, to reflect on it, I mean, the ways that we tried to do that, and the way that we continue to try to do that, is through communication, through meetings with our entire team on a regular basis, through, talking about what's going on in the business. I think that in hindsight, we could have done more of that sooner. Meaning when our company was, still small, still working in a shared use kitchen, there are probably different ways that we could have
welcomed the team in.
Shared the journey of the business, especially when it comes to some things that have a lot of baggage, like investor or capital, or things in that realm, where folks who are maybe coming in, working in a production space with you, don't know a lot about, and they might have their own ideas about what that really means. And so I think we learned some things about how to maybe sort of carry that message forward and help people understand more about how the business really works, and how, if we wanted to make a bigger impact and grow to do that, we were going to need to bring capital in. And if that wasn't okay for that person, that was totally fine. Some people, that's not the kind of world they want to be in. But for us, it made a lot of sense to be able to truly be able to change things on the level that we thought not only we wanted to do, but we feel like is necessary.
Mm-hmm. I think this is really, really important. So I'd love the entrepreneurs out there to hear this. And then I want to get Tom and Abby to chime in on what they've seen with this company and other companies. It's very hard to maintain strength and leadership and show vulnerability at the same time, and to find that balance to share. It's scary out there for us as entrepreneurs. We may or may not be getting funding. I mean, you can't, what's the line? Let me just throw it to Tom. What's the line there? Because you don't want to tell people that, yikes, we've got a funding crisis. You don't want people to worry for their jobs. Here, you've created this space for people to have security. And yet at the same time, the pressure on entrepreneurs to keep it all together is overwhelming. Tom first, and then Abby, what do you recommend in these kinds of situations?
Yeah, it's staying true to yourself. I think that's one of the key things that made an investment decisions for us to make aren't easy either. There are a number of variables that go into these things, and if 90% of businesses fail, that's 90% of our investments that fail. So that's not a great stat.
Noted.
Hopefully we can bring that down to some extent. But what you want to look for are people who are true entrepreneurs. And I like to differentiate between entrepreneurs and founders, right? Founders are people who start businesses. Entrepreneurs are people who grow them and are successful at what they're trying to do. And I think Sadrah and Mike's ability to stay on mission, to stay on message in the face of incredible difficulty. And to be fair, many businesses faced a lot of difficulty. I saw one ridiculous stat that 60% of people who make less than $50,000 a year had their entire life savings wiped out during the pandemic. So, we will be spending years unraveling the damage that was done by the pandemic. But it's great to find these shining examples of entrepreneurs who persevered, who made difficult choices. And that's what you're really looking for, in a management team. You're looking for that ability to, in the face of great odds, make the best out of the situation and get through the other side. Abby, what do you think?
I think those were a lot of really great points. I think it really kind of comes down to having one or two really core guiding principles as a foundation. And I think that's true if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an investor, or just in general in life. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to make bad decisions. And you're not always going to know the right thing to do. You're not always going to make the right choice. But as long as you're making choices that are in line with those principles and that guiding principle of that mission, then at least you know you're doing the best that you can. And I think communicating that to your employees, or if you're an investor, communicating that to your portfolio companies is very important. And if they agree with that guiding principle and they're in alignment with that, and they trust you to make decisions that are in alignment with that, then they will follow you and they will trust you in spite of any mistakes that you might make or hardships that might occur.
And anyone can chime in here. I'll leave it for Tom and Abby first, but also Mike and Sadrah. Do you recommend having mentors, people that you can lean on? Because it is hard to handle the pressure all the time at the one at the top. Now, that's the job. That's the gig. When you sign up for it, you know that that's the gig. But it's another thing to know it's the gig and then to live it every day. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I had this conversation with someone, I think it was just yesterday, where we're launching a project at the firm, and it's a great idea. I don't know how to do it. And I think one of the greatest skills I've learned over my long years of working is being faster and better at raising my hand when I don't know something. It's one thing, I think Richard Branson said, say yes and figure out how to do it later. That may have worked for him. That doesn't work for me. And I know that doesn't work for me. So when I have an idea and I want to go do something, I'll reach out to people who are smarter than me, and better at me and have done it before. I don't think some people may think that's a sign of weakness or you don't know what you're doing. But it's the only way we get better. And it's the only way you get smarter, is by surrounding yourselves with people who are better and smarter than you, and who have been there before and have lived through the ups and the downs. My brother-in-law is just about to get married, and there are a million things I would love to tell him about. Sit down, let's have a cup of coffee and discuss all the ways that you can stay out of the doghouse. And let me share my wisdom with you. He's yet to call and ask for that talk. But it's a real example of, and we always laugh about a husband's inability to please his wife and do things correctly. It's endemic to our society, but it translates to business, right? You're going to come across decision sets that you have to make. You're going to come across challenges and issues you're going to have. And it is incredibly comforting to have someone to call, even if it's just to say, yeah, that sucks. I don't know what to do about that. I've had to deal with a lot of stuff in my life, but never that decision here. But here's a different way to look at it. Just someone to bounce it off of. I think having that's invaluable.
Yeah, I agree. I want to throw a question to Abby here. I find for myself personally, when the pressure mounts as an entrepreneur, I have to be able to share that with people. I can't keep it in and just pretend everything's okay. What do you think about showing that, I guess, personal weakness that I'm not saying the sky is falling. I'm just saying I can't always pretend it's all fine. I have to say, like, today's a hard day because I don't know how it's going to shake out. I promise I'll figure it out. And you're all coming with me. I'm not leaving anyone in the lurch. I've been an entrepreneur now 3 times. But I just can't pretend like there's not lightning over my head. I don't know what you think about that.
People who know me who are listening to this will laugh because I'm a complete open book. I tell everybody everything, all of the good that comes with that and all of the bad that comes with that. And that's not for everybody. I think everybody's different. People have different personalities. Everyone has a different management style and communication style. But I do think, so for me, it's very important to be very open with everybody about everything. And that's what I do by default. But other folks might value their privacy a bit more or find it valuable to keep some things more close to the chest. And I think that's also fine. I think it can vary from person to person. I do think authenticity is important, though. And that's something that really stood out to Tom and I about the No Evil team and about Mike and Sadrah when we first met them. Was the authenticity of their leadership, the authenticity of the brand, and the authenticity of, what they're trying to build with their company and what they've built so far with No Evil. And I think that's something that especially the modern day consumer and especially, younger millennial consumers and Gen Z consumers are really starting to value more and more. in the marketplace. So I think keeping that authenticity as a leader and in your brand is very important.
Yes. Before we move on to all the great things that are taking off from here, so you did get this bridge loan. We're going to talk about that and your new co-manufacturing relationship. So very exciting, because that is such a bottleneck for many plant-based companies, just finding a co-manufacturer. Forget like having the machinery and the expertise, just finding a co-manufacturer is so difficult. So another very tricky solution that you've now come across. I'm wondering if you want to talk at all, and you may not, about controlling the media. So that is, or not, control is maybe the not right word here, but working with the media to get out an accurate story. I don't know if you feel that you were correctly represented or poorly represented. You can share that as well if you would like, but getting out news in a way that is reflective of the actual situation. I wonder if you have any tips for entrepreneurs there.
Oh, Lord, I wish I could control the media.
Yes, well, okay.
Anybody know how to do that? It has been a really sort of otherworldly experience to go through what we've gone through, and to see how these stories become sensationalized, and how, I feel so much for like celebrities now in a way that like I never had empathy for in the same way in the past, because knowing the true story, knowing what the way that I experienced it and the way that that it was lived, and then to see the way that sometimes it gets sensationalized or misrepresented in the media has been so just mind-blowing to me. Just absolutely flooring. I think there's a lot of bias. There's a lot of one-sided media. There's, we've seen this with COVID and just how the reporting is just completely not following science, not following, what's kind of been proven and studied. And we've experienced similar kind of analogies to the way that our story has been covered. Yeah.
Yes, so, great.
Yeah. I think that, the best that you can do is try to get your story out there and hope that the journalist covers it. But we've noticed in our case that hasn't always happened.
And why do you think that is? I mean, we will move to your future stuff in just a second, but I think there's so many lessons to learn about the media here. And often, just as in your case, the mission-driven food entrepreneur usually has no experience in food, is making a product in their kitchen because they'd like to see it, so it's not like most people come from ConAgra and then do this kind of thing. So you're dealing with people who are probably new to the media, probably new to food manufacturing. So just why do you think that the press got this so wrong?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike, if you want to say something. I was just going to say, I think that you've got social media, which is, like a cancel culture. It's full of lies. It's full of half truths. It's full of distortions, very convenient narratives that fit the poster's agenda. We've seen a lot of that going around, but we've also seen more reputable newscasts, radio programs that left us less than 24 hours to provide a statement, which, at that point, the news segment is already fully produced. Their mind is made up. They had no intention of including our story and allowing us to share our voice on it. Why that happens, I really don't know. It was very, very disappointing to see news outlets that we trusted as like sources of real information to respond to us in that way, or not respond, to not give us, they barely did their due diligence. There was zero fact checking, insinuations that crazy. But sorry, go ahead, Mike. You wanted to say something?
Well, I would say, and it's not across the board, so I want to be clear about that. I mean, we have spoken to folks who have been, very fair, very balanced, very, come to kind of hear both sides of the story and understand what really happened. But I think, to Sadrah's point, there's a lot out there in particularly in digital, but not solely in digital, that is biased or agenda driven, and that's unfortunate, but it's not objective reporting. And so
people want to see good people fall. They want to see good businesses fail. I mean, it's sick, but it's true. And I think that there is something to that people just, they like to see it when someone that has morals, that has values, that stands for something, isn't somehow in the way that they think they should be. Yeah.
And I think to that point, it's important, like, it's important to acknowledge, for me at least, like, through this experience and through the change in manufacturing and having to close our plant, like, we let a bunch of people down. Like, we made mistakes, and we didn't, you know, we can learn a ton from them. But I think, to Sadrah's point, there are people or organizations out there who want to take that and say that you're all bad because something went wrong or you made a mistake. And I don't think that's fair for anybody to have to sort of live under that kind of scrutiny and microscope, or however you want to describe it. Because, you know, we could go through and kind of list out the good things that we do, the good things that we try to do, the good things that we want to do in the future. But everybody makes mistakes, entrepreneurs and just human beings, or that's the sort of the definition of human being. And so I think we have to find more compassion and more forgiveness and try to pull back and see the bigger picture. You know, No Evil Foods is a little company in a rapidly growing space, trying to make a difference up against, you know, what are we,
Giants.
1 or 2% of the total meat category right now?
Yes.
Like, what are we really fighting? What are we really trying to do? And how can we be
together.
more compassionate and come together around what we're really trying to do, and not spend our time and energy trying to tear each other apart before we ever get anywhere near the kind of impact that we want to achieve?
A bunch of things to say there. In the US, we are 1% of the meat market, and globally, we are just about 3% of the meat market. I would agree that we've become a cancel culture and a blame culture. So I take it upon myself whenever I see good, and that can be good because somebody picked up something that somebody else dropped in a grocery store, or that can be all the way good up to this entrepreneur is doing this kind of activity, or this volunteer is doing this kind of activity. Whatever good I see, I make sure I call it out, because we have become a culture that only calls out the bad. And of course, life's just not that way. It's not all good. It's not all bad. And when you see good, you've got to reward it. And obviously there's a lot of good here. So if you know, I say all these comments I'm getting on social media about how people are loving your product, and they realize you have 2 kids at home. And so you're going through the entrepreneurial pressure as well as kids, and you're making this pivot to the new co-manufacturing plant, a lot of stuff on your plate. So people are giving you lots of love here on social media today. So as we talk about your new move, and you are going to the co-manufacturing plant, and you have a bridge loan. Oh, thank you, Big Idea Ventures. Let's talk about why Big Idea Ventures decided to go for the loan. I know you guys have already said authenticity and great decision making, but what else do you see that we haven't yet touched on that No Evil Foods holds in their hot little hands?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first, and certainly ask Abby to chip in as well. You know, for me, it's about finding the white space, whether a lot of money was flowing into plant-based meat, and then we pivoted when I was with another food company, investing on their behalf, and made some investments into the alternative seafood space, because there wasn't a lot of activity there, an opportunity to get in on an early stage. Honestly, what, you know, Abby talked about it before, authenticity. There is something to building a brand that legacy companies are unable to do, try as they might. And they have a lot of great people building brands internally that want to do exactly what brands like No Evil have done, build that connection with the customer, build that brand authenticity, and they just can't. There's just too much baggage associated with being a legacy food company that you can call it, you can change the color of the packaging, you can create a new business unit, everyone's going to know who made it, and people are going to think that the values of that line, that SKU set, are the same as the legacy brand that people may have issues with. So being able to create that brand authenticity, that connection, that authentic connection with the consumer is rare. And that's one of the things that we really liked about it. The fact that, you know, Sadrah and Mike, to some extent, may have sacrificed distribution growth to stay authentic, right? You're going to have buyers who say, we want a particular thing, we want a particular flavor, we want extended shelf life. Well, we can't make some of those things happen, because we have to change the ingredient set, and that takes us to a bigger label, which is not in our DNA. It's not what we are. So for me, it was knowing them for a long time, I don't know how long we've known each other, but it's been in startup years, it's like dog years we've known each other. And you get to the point where you say, if there's an opportunity to do something with those folks, I want to do it. And then an opportunity presents itself and you act on it. So that was really it for me.
Yeah, I love what you say here. So much of what I do when I'm not doing the plant-based business hour is my consulting work at Plant Powered Consulting. And as I work with these David brands in the David versus Goliath story, you see that their ability to create trust, their nimble way of moving through the marketplace, their ability to understand their consumers in a way that large companies just can't and can't connect is so incredibly invigorating, because you see that potential power really to shift the dynamic on the fight field, if you will, again, between David and Goliath, euphemistically. Abby, what would you like to add to that? And maybe you can also talk about if there's going to be a new raise in the future. Well, I guess Sadrah and Mike can talk about that too. But yeah, what were your thoughts about connecting with No Evil Foods?
Yes, I mean, I agree with everything Tom said. All really great points. Again, on the other piece that's really important to me, or was really important to me in the diligence, was the clean label aspect. I think that that's something that is going to be huge in plant-based moving forward. Historically, the market has been heavily dominated by players like Beyond and Impossible and, very close meat analog types of brands, but that may not have the strongest health component. And while those brands have obviously been very successful, and there's certainly a market for that, I see a lot of consumer shifts towards things that are very health focused and are clean labeled, prioritizing whole food ingredients. And if you sacrifice a little bit of the similarity to meat in the process, that isn't the end of the world. And I really think, especially with some of the advancements in cell-based and cultivated meat products, and some of the combined cultivated and plant-based products that we're seeing coming to market, for the purely plant-based segment, I think we're really going to start to see consumers wanting to celebrate the vegetable and the plant components of those products and put them front and center, instead of trying to hide them behind meat analog masking. So that health focus, as well as the brand being very focused on ethics and morals and having a strong vision, I think that's something that consumers and investors both are really starting to put ESG forward as a priority. So both of those aspects were very attractive to me also.
Okay, so much to unpack there, and I have to do it in my typical Elizabeth Plant-Based Business Hour way. So one thing I learned in my conversation with Tom Mastrobuoni the last time he was on my show is that consumers love choice. So to me, it stands to reason that you could have these truly meat analog products that have a different type of label and have this whole food plant-based, really clean label type of world as consumers move out of, when you think about it, meat is a very limited choice. Right? You get that one kind of hamburger meat. You probably don't even have a brand associated with it. You go home, not too much choice there. Now consumers are having all this opportunity, and it just stands to reason that there would be diversity in the plant-based world as well, period. So I connect with that. I would like to say, though, just because sometimes I'll say legacy plant-based brands, Impossible and Beyond, get a little bit of a bad rap. And, obviously they're not a carrot. Obviously they're not a head of lettuce, but they are a step in the right direction. So as we look at health as a spectrum, if you've got something that has cholesterol and no fiber and saturated fat, so your meats, they do give you protein. They're not, the worst on the spectrum, but they do have a lot of negative that comes with that protein. And then you move over to like a Beyond or Impossible, you don't have cholesterol, and you don't have antibiotics, you don't have hormones, you don't have animal heme, you don't have trimethylene N oxide, TMAO, these things, bad for you. So they're a step in the right direction for that 97% globally that we talked about, because we're still only 3% globally plant-based foods. So we got 97% of the people out there trying to move in the right direction. I want those people to have a choice. I want those people to get the taste that they want in meat, but have a better better option for themselves. So that's a step in the right direction. But then you can go to No Evil Foods and get that cleaner label for those who are really starting to dial in on their health. So, there's health as a spectrum and health as a choice, as Tom told us last time in the Plant-Based Business Hour. So I think all of this is so very exciting. And I see the key and pivotal role that No Evil Foods can play here. I will, one last drop here is you talk about as people are more and more concerned with a clean label and Whole Foods plant-based, or at least Whole Foods, and they're understanding fiber. Whole Foods is great. Today came out from Innova Marketing Insights, a report that shows that concern for the health of the planet has now taken over as the consumer's number one issue, surpassing their interest in health. So I think that's interesting, and we're going to see that play a larger and larger role in all of this. Okay, now we know why Big Idea Ventures decided to get involved and do a bridge loan. But prior to the bridge loan, I think Mike and Sadrah, you had a crowdfunding round, right?
We didn't yet.
You didn't?
Coming.
Oh, you're
it's
okay.
Coming.
Talk to me about that.
You didn't miss your chance yet, Elizabeth. I know we talked about this last time.
Yes, we talked about last time. I thought it had come and gone. Oh my gosh. Well, sign me up. Tell me about, financing to come and how people can be involved.
Yeah, well, we do have plans, hopefully, to do some crowd equity fundraising campaigns. I think it's a really cool option, kind of to democratize the our investment strategy and provide a way or a means for anyone and a wider range of people to really participate in investing in the exciting plant-based category. So we're really excited to do that. It's a little bit different than how we've raised capital in the past. I think it'll be a lot of fun to do that and really connect with the audience that we've been able to foster and grow over the past 7 years of having this company. And then in 2022, we are launching a larger Series B. Mike, can you share more about that?
Sure. So, kind of as Sadrah said, extremely grateful to the team at Big Idea for coming in on the bridge. We are actually still raising capital on that bridge. So if there are, folks out there that are interested, we'd love to talk to them, as well as looking at the crowd equity options as well. And then, that's going to kind of give us the funds that we need to support the transition into the co-manufacturer, get that fully up and running. We have new products coming to market, which I'll pitch back to Sadrah in a second to talk more in detail about some of the new stuff that's coming to market, but help support that, that growth into some new categories and new products. And then kind of get us to that Series B raise in the kind of early part of 2022. Because we really, as we've kind of talked about, competition increasing in this category rapidly. And in order to be able to, not only defend kind of what we've built, which is, from my perspective, at least, pretty remarkable when you look at the capital that we have raised versus some of our competitors and what we've accomplished. But we really want to put the right dollars behind this to get No Evil Foods to everybody. We want to be able to share the things that we've talked about why is this why is this brand different and interesting? Why is the product different and attractive? We want to really be able to put the right dollars behind it to be able to do that. And that's, admittedly needs to be significant in this space. There's no way around it. It takes a lot of capital to be successful in CPG and in food and beverage.
And I think there's a gap in plant-based investing community too. I think that, we're a fast-growing, successful business, and we need growth capital to sustain our success. That's just the stage of growth that we're in. We've had and worked with really wonderful financial partners in our space who do a great job of helping get us to step B. But then there seems to be a gap of investment until companies somehow find their way to steps C, D, and E. And I think that's an area where plant-based investing can really improve and start supporting their brands a little bit better.
Interesting. I love that you say that. I also love this crowdfunding idea of sort of equal opportunity investor, if you will. Is there a minimum or maximum? Sorry, a minimum. Yeah. Is there a minimum?
No maximum. Give us all your money.
Yes. No, to be clear, everybody, is there a minimum for starting?
Yeah, we're working out kind of the details of it now, but it would likely be something in the range of like $100 or something like that.
So really equal opportunity. I love it. Well, one of the things I look for as an investor, and I am no Tom Mastrobuoni or Abby Lyall for sure. I'm a teeny investor, but I look for the wherewithal of the founders. So the founders who can take it on the chin and still get up and keep moving. I don't want to say that a successful entrepreneur has to be the Terminator. I mean, obviously there are days that are just awful, and you have to share that with, I speak for myself. Sometimes you just have to share that with people, but those who can maintain their sights on the vision and still keep moving. Maybe it's only baby steps some days because it gets really hard, but just continuing to put one foot in front of the other, which is what I see here. So, so that's awesome. I will look for the crowdfunding. So do we have new products in the pipeline? Is that what I'm getting the sense of here? Because you've got a new co-manufacturer. Maybe you can talk to me about that as well. How did you pick the new co-manufacturer? Because that's no easy decision there. And then are we going to see new products?
Yes and yes. So yeah, on finding the co-manufacturer, we didn't have a lot of time because we were kind of trying to make this change really quickly under a lot of different kind of pressures. But building a company that has the vision that No Evil Foods has been a priority for a long time. And one of the areas that we had this vision was in workforce development and creating opportunities for folks who were formerly incarcerated. We're a certified fair chance business. We were really fortunate to come across a co-manufacturer who was already operating to some level in the plant-based manufacturing space, who had available space in their building where we could physically lift up the facility that we were previously operating in and reposition it, lay it out more efficiently than before into their manufacturing space, which actually removed a lot of barriers to pursuing co-manufacturing for us in the past because of our unique equipment needs. There's not a kind of turnkey co-manufacturer out there that would have fit our needs. So we developed this relationship. They're really excited and passionate about workforce development as well. It happens to be located in an area that's severely economically disadvantaged. It has one of the highest crime rates in the country, and we're able to create really meaningful job opportunities for folks who may not have an opportunity to grow a career in food manufacturing like this. And so that was a big part of our identity as No Evil Foods. And, it's meaningful to us that in some capacity, we're able to continue on that vision. And new products are coming soon as well. We're still working on getting the manufacturing up and running. The bridge is kind of there to help us get that fully executed. We had our first manufacturing runs there a couple weeks ago, which is really exciting. And the new products are coming soon. We have our jerky, which is very, very long awaited. We've been sort of low key sampling this out to people and teasing it to retailers for years, but we've got jerky coming. We've been refining, we've been dieting it. It's the best it's ever been. We're utilizing upcycled ingredients. We're utilizing fermentation to really impact the texture, as well as prolonged shelf life without the additional preservatives needed in a lot of products. So jerky is really exciting. It's going to be the first plant-based certified, it's plant-based certified, but it's also going to be the first certified plastic negative jerky on the market, not just in plant-based, but everywhere. And we also have some new kind of refrigerated and frozen products coming out. Beef strips is one of the things we're super excited about. It's called Best Life Beef. You're hearing about it here first. Elysabeth Alfano, you're breaking news left and right. And we're super, super stoked about the beef because I think there's a lot of room to diversify the format that consumers are looking for in plant-based foods. We have enough meatballs, we have enough burgers, we have enough crumbles. What else does the beef category need? So these beef strips really fill a lot of white space in the beef category. And then some other new things, chimichurri marinated chicken and al pastor pork, so a chili pineapple marinated pork, really leaning into the consumer base that we see adopting plant-based foods at the quickest rates.
Yeah, that's wonderful. When you say you see the quickest rates, are you talking about sort of Hispanic American flavors coming through these global flavors?
Right. We've seen data showing that Black and Latinx consumers are adopting plant-based foods at much higher rates than you would expect, or that many expect. And I think that we're wrong in that assumption. And so we should start focusing on that in our innovation.
Yeah, I love that. Again, lots of to unpack here. I guess sort of literally, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I read, this would have been maybe about a year ago, that your packaging is already to date carbon negative?
It's plastic negative. So
Plastic negative. Thank you.
Yeah. In 2020, we became the world's first certified plastic negative company. It's a plastic credit platform that we work with. It's called Repurpose Global. And what we do is we commit to remove and recover 200% of the plastic that's generated by our packaging. So as a food manufacturer, we need to maintain food safety, food security, and we need to maintain shelf life that works for our retailers. But we also don't want to be contributing to a much larger environmental issue than we need to. And so we can't get away from plastic yet. The infrastructure, the manufacturing hasn't quite caught up to what our needs are for a food manufacturer, but we can address the waste and the piece of it, that the role of it that we play. And so through this organization, we're able to remove plastic from natural ecosystems. They also have a really awesome social component that fits in with our mission, where they help marginalized waste workers elevate and create permanent waste management facilities in countries that don't have them, because most of our waste is actually not processed. It's shipped offshore to countries that don't have the ability to process that waste.
I'll never be able to sum it up here because there's so much, but this is a mission-oriented company on so many ways. We think animals, we think the environment, but it goes way beyond that. It goes jobs. We haven't even talked about this on this show. You'll have to come back, but the secular trend that we are now experiencing, which is the shift of our entire global food supply system, ultimately means the creation of a lot of jobs. And hear that you have this focus on jobs and fair chance jobs. I love to hear that as a priority, as part of the mission, going beyond the top 3 people, planet, and animals. But your packaging and getting plastic out of your packaging and thinking about packaging and waste, in addition to these clean label objectives, it's kind of mind-boggling how much you are accomplishing, which is why I think of this as sort of a company of the people because of all of your mission. And so I'm so happy about the crowdfunding, which will let people really get involved. So wonderful. As we wrap up here, unless you all want to chime in and say something else, because this is a going off the reservation kind of plant-based business hour. So if you've got something you want to say, for sure, say it. Otherwise, I have a last exit question for everybody. Here we go then. Okay, starting with Tom Mastrobuoni. What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, gosh. I wish I knew how big investing in food was going to be 10 years ago, so I could have gotten into it sooner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Me too. Ditto. Abby?
I wish I knew, and I feel like this is a classic, adolescence to young adulthood one, but I wish I knew just how not a big deal a lot of things that seemed like a big deal at the time would become. And I think tying in with a lot of the things we were talking about related to business struggles and what do you say to yourself to get past hard times, this big problem that you think is such a big problem today, 10 years from now is not going to seem like that big a problem. So that's what I'll conclude with for all the entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, I love it. Sadrah?
Gosh, so many things. Where do I start? But I think a big one is that you don't have to be perfect to be successful. I think that it's easy to think that, mistakes can't happen. Everything's going to suck. Nothing's going to work out right. Everything's going to be terrible. You go down the spiral. And kind of piggybacking on what Abby said, a lot of those things aren't going to be the nail in your coffin. They're just mistakes, and you learn from them. You do the best you can with the information you have at the time. You make better choices next time, but none of that is going to hinge, like your success isn't going to hinge on any of those failures. Your success is only going to hinge on how you grow or how you stay stagnant. And if you continue to grow and seek opportunities to change, success will follow.
Yeah, I love that. Mike, you're getting last word.
Yeah. I think when I look, if I think about No Evil Foods trajectory, at least, and it's not quite 10 years, it's more like 7.5, something like that at this point. Even if it appears from the outside, like if it's great when people can kind of see the passion that we have and the excitement that we have and the drive that we have. But when I look back at the early days when we were going to the farmer's market and we were just starting out, or even, we're sitting on the couch trying to figure out our unit cost and saying to each other, like, I don't even know if anybody's going to buy this. I wish we had been more confident. Like, honestly, I look back and go like, I wish we had known, kind of to what Tom said, I wish we had known what was going to happen in the next 7 years in this category and in this world. Because, it might have helped us just have more guts to go, even kind of harder, because we knew even more about this opportunity that was there to make this impact. Because there are plenty of places along the path where you're just like, you're in the moment, you're trying to figure out, well, do I do this or do I do that? Do I go this way or that way? And, that could have cleared up some of that uncertainty.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'll say, and I always have different ones on the show, but a body in motion stays in motion. So some days you make very few steps, but at least you haven't stopped. So just keeping at it, trying to do your best every day, which some days will be better than others. A body in motion stays in motion. And then to everybody listening today, I will say it's so easy to be on the couch and just kind of criticize everybody as they come across your screen. But it takes a lot more to reach out and tell people, anybody, entrepreneurs, but also maybe your roommate, like, hey, nice job. Hey, great shirt. Hey, well done, you. Saying well done somehow seems to be a lot harder than ripping people apart. So I would encourage everybody to, if you see some good in the world, go ahead and give a shout out. I'm giving a shout out today to No Evil Foods. Thank you for staying at the mission. Thank you for having your eyes on so many missions. I am looking for those beef strips because, we did announce it here. So I will be looking for the beef strips to come and the crowdfunding. I want to thank you, Tom Mastrobuoni and Abby Lyall from Big Idea Ventures. Of course, big love coming from the Plant-Based Business Hour to you. You've been on my show before. And Sadrah Schadel and Mike Woliansky, thank you for all you do at No Evil Foods. Really, it's been quite a journey, and you live to tell. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth,
thank you.
for having us.
Okay. You four stay put. Everybody else, this was an exceptional Plant-Based Business Hour, but usually I'm on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Pacific. I will see you next Tuesday, everybody. Thanks for all you do. See you next week. You guys stay put. Bye all.